Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Amazing Race Recap, where you can catch memorable moments, season reviews, and rankings from the race. For today's video, I'll be taking a deep dive at Season 1, the original that started it all. As a reminder, I will be saying that I watched the seasons out of order, not in the traditional sense. I started with the newer seasons, such as 33, 34, and 35, and then I started to go back to the originals like Season 1. So I did watch the race out of order. So Season 1 had many interesting quirks being the original. In my opinion, there were some more boring moments, especially towards the start of the race, and this made it less engaging to get into, but it did actually end up being pretty good towards the end, and I'll talk more about that later. Then we also had some production quirks, as Phil was only at the mat for the last team to arrive. I thought that was a pretty funny thing that happened. And, well, of course, this only happened for season 1, but I'm glad that we got to be able to see more of Phil later on. And then also we had some issues with production, and that led to penalties and time being granted and that kind of stuff. This occurred a little bit in season 2 also, but it was really concentrated in season 1. And so just some interesting things happening. So before I get into the cast for the season, I'm going to be talking about what I thought of the tasks and that kind of stuff. So the tasks were not that bad for the season. Um, there wasn't anything too memorable. It was just okay for the season. I gave it an 85 out of 100, which is less than the average that I gave for a season. And looking at the overall route, it was not that bad. Considering it's the first season, the route they had was pretty good. They started off in New York, then they went to South Africa, France, Tunisia, Italy, India, Thailand, China, Alaska, and then New York. So a pretty okay route considering this was the first season. So now I'm going to go team by team and talk about uh, did I think they're a good team at racing? Did I enjoy them? And so we are going to start off with the first team eliminated, Matt and Anna. So one of the main themes throughout the race, it's the different archetypes for teams. You have maybe the older couple as a potential archetype. You also have the troubled couple. And I would say Matt and Anna were like the first troubled couple in the sense that they're the first eliminated. And personally, I find the troubled couple archetype to be pretty interesting, but it depends. The bickering between some couples, it's more interesting than the bickering between other couples, and that kind of determines what teams I like more. Personally, I'm fine with more negative teams. I'm fine with the villains. Some teams that others may find annoying, I find interesting and entertaining to watch. And some teams that people like to cheer for, the nicer teams, I may not find it as interesting if they don't do that much in the grand scheme of the race. Matt and Anna, they're an alright troubled couple. They could be more interesting if they moved on further into the race, but in the end, they were the first team eliminated in the race history. And then moving on, Kim and Leslie were the second team eliminated, 10th place. I can't remember them that much, to be honest. I found that it was just really hard to get into the season, but it did end up being really good. They just were friends or something, and I didn't find them particularly interesting. I don't think we got to see a lot of them. Same story with Pat and Brenda. They were kind of like the underdog stereotype, and they weren't that interesting to me. I remember Dave and Margareta a little better. They're the first older team on the race. They got 8th place, which isn't too bad for that archetype. And but there's far more charming older teams later in the race. So those first four teams, none of them strike me that well, but after that we get some really interesting teams considering this is just the first season. Paul and Amy I thought were a great troubled couple. They yelled a lot at each other. Amy had some breakdowns. I really thought they were a lot of fun to watch as a bickering couple. One of the better ones through the race history. And yeah, they were a lot of fun. They got seventh place, which isn't that great, but I personally thought they were a pretty entertaining team to watch. And then after that, we had another troubled couple be eliminated, Lenny and Karen. This was another interesting team that was fun to watch the bickering because Karen, she cared so much about the race, and Lenny was kind of more just a chill guy, and Karen did a lot of yelling. She was a pretty animated character and entertaining to watch, so I found them to be an entertaining team as well. And then we have a pretty iconic team that got eliminated in fifth, Nancy and Emily. They're a great underdog mother-daughter team that would kind of inspire some more teams like that in the future of the race. And they had a pretty cool showdown with the Guidos at that fast forward and that whole drama about how they got eliminated for the wrong method of transport. And that this whole from seventh place to first place, I thought all of those legs were pretty good. Before that, there were a few memorable moments, but I mean, the race really got a lot better as it went on, and I was able to be more invested into it. And then after that, in fourth place was Drew and Kevin, the New Yorkers. They're just a fantastic team, hilarious to watch, one of the funniest teams in race history, and they just had so many funny quotes. And yeah, it was really great to watch them. They're one of my favorite teams all time. They're definitely an icon of the race, and they're great to watch. And then in third place, we have the Guidos, Bill and Joe. They were the villains of the season. They did a few bad things, but nothing that bad compared to some of the other villains in the race. But I really enjoyed watching the Guidos. It was funny to watch how they got so far behind in the race. They made that one hotel mistake or whatever. They stayed at a hotel and missed the fast forward. There was a whole drama with that, and then they just got caught so far behind on the final leg, like a full day, and so that was kind of funny to watch and very interesting. So I definitely enjoyed the Guidos. They're right up there as one of the icons in race history. They're the first villains, which is an incredibly important role to play, and they're a very interesting team. In second place, we had another troubled couple, Frank and Margarita. They had a lot of nice, interesting bickering. I thought they were a pretty fun team to watch, and their relationship was definitely in limbo through a lot of the race. But they didn't engage that much with the other teams. I feel like that was their main, attribute. They were the troubled couple. And then for the winners of the race, it was a strong male team, which is one of the archetypes, and that was Brennan and Rob, the lawyers. And personally, this archetype, this strong male team, is the least interesting one, to me at least, because they just, unless they're you have to be like funny or something to make up for it, and they weren't particularly funny. They weren't the villains, and they just didn't have that much going for them. So in my opinion, Brennan and Rob's victory in the Amazing Race season 1 set a precedent for some less than interesting teams winning the race in the future. I didn't mind them, they just weren't that exciting to me. They were definitely the least exciting team in the final 7. So, yeah, it was a very good season 1 with some great action towards the end and some memorable moments. And how would I rank these teams according to how entertaining they were and how much I enjoyed them? I have the Guidos and the New Yorkers tied at the top. They provided the most entertainment for this. And then in third, I have Frank and Margarita tied with Nancy and Emily. And then fifth, we have Lenny and Karen. Sixth, we have Paul and Amy. Seventh, Brendan and Rob. Eighth, Matt and Anna. Ninth, Dave and Margareta. 10th, Pat and Brenda. And then 11th, Kim and Leslie. So that is kind of my rankings as to the teams I enjoyed the most to the teams I enjoyed the least. I thought this was a great season. For being season one, it's going to end up as one of the most iconic seasons in race history, and I have only watched half the seasons, but right now it is ranked at 6th for me, so it could slide back. But I think there's a pretty strong chance that it could end up in my top 10. After I'm done watching all the seasons and giving my reviews, I will do a big video where I compare every season and rank them from worst to best. So that is the end of my review for season one. I thought, the route was okay, the tasks were but the locations were pretty decent. The cast was very good, and there was a pretty good storyline with the Guidos as villains and a bunch of troubled couples in there to supplement them. So that is my review of season one. I think I give it an 8 out of 10. A pretty good start to the race and one of the more enjoyable seasons if you stick with it. So I definitely recommend starting with season one, as it gives some background info for the rest of the race and set some good precedents. So I'll see you in the next one with my review of season 2.